Thank you all for joining us. We are excited to have you. We're delighted to organize this event as part of the globally celebrated Black Philanthropy Month. My name is Ani Akpe. I'm the Community and Partnership Manager here at the African Diaspora Network. So today's conversation is Forward Together, Afro-Futures of Giving. This session will explore how the African diaspora can drive transformational change through innovative financial models, digital philanthropy, and also collective giving. And let me just give you a brief about ADN. We thank you that have come back to join us. We know you know some information, but we'll just give you a brief information about who we are. Founded in 2010, the African Diaspora Network is a Silicon Valley-based nonprofit that promotes entrepreneurship and economic development on the African continent and in the communities in which we live. We bring together Africans on the continent, in the diaspora, and Friends of Africa to actualize their full potential, activate their entrepreneurship spirit, and strategically mobilize financial and intellectual resources to ensure a brighter future for the African continent. We do this through 5 programs and other initiatives, which you'll learn more about in our chat, and also Almaz will speak on these programs and initiatives as well. So today's discussion is a part of our ongoing efforts to explore and promote impactful giving and sustainable development through the African diaspora's collective resources. So without further ado, I will now pass it over to Almaz Nagash, the CEO of the African Diaspora Network, to moderate our distinguished panel today. So over to you, Almaz.
Thanks, Annie. Annie and I, we were actually at different events representing ADN, and it was the one I was at was actually the graduation of the Builders of Africa's Future, which means that whatever we talk about today when it comes to philanthropy, how are we supporting the grassroots African entrepreneurs on the continent? So every single thing we do every single day at ADN, we keep thinking, okay, what does that mean to the grassroots entrepreneurs on the continent? What does it mean to the grassroots entrepreneurs in the United States? So this conversation is so critical to who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do. So I am so grateful to all of you for being here with us. I know that we had 136 people registered for this, but so is, which is great because there is a lot of interest, but it's also that when you do virtual convening, which ADN is well known for, it depends on who is available to come. But I do know that there is a tremendous interest, but there's also a lot of requests for our time. So I appreciate each and every one of you who is in the room. I also live by this motto that whoever is in the room is who was supposed to be. And so we're very grateful to each and every one of you. And on behalf of the African Diaspora Network and our esteemed speakers and my wonderful friends, welcome to this session of the Black Philanthropy Month. I want to give a special thanks to our lead funder for this session, the Gates Foundation. They've given us the funding to do ongoing annual convening through virtual convening, plus also in-person convening. Otherwise, we can't do the work that we're doing. So we're very thankful to our funders. I came from a meeting where I really said that we can all have a dream, but if we don't have the funding, it's very difficult to move anything that we're doing. So we're very thankful to everyone who supports the work that we do. And I appreciate the continuing support of our board, the Executive Leadership Council, the committees that make ADN whole. We are a small organization with mighty group of team members that do 10 things at the same time. But we are also supported by many, many people, which you can find them on our website. I will not go to any of the programs that we're doing. Annie did share with you. And if you don't know us as much, I would love for you to get to know us. Join what we're about to do and what our vision and mission is, and we can't achieve that either without you. We cannot achieve that without you as well. So I'm very happy that you are with us, and we will have a conversation on what philanthropy means. But I want to give a big shout out to Jackie Copeland, the founder of the Black Philanthropy Month. It is her vision that started many, many, many years ago, probably more than 20-something years ago, to really get the voices and the might of the Black philanthropy to be known. And I think she's done a great job. I don't think she's here with us today, but I want to just shout out on her behalf and on all of us to thank her for her vision. And we're just carrying that legacy in partnership with Thelma and I, we've been working on this for a while, but Thelma has done a lot on the continent, and I do the best I can to support it through the diaspora. Let me tell you why we are doing what we're doing today and why these women, they will say a little bit about who they are and what they represent when I ask them to introduce themselves, but I'm going to introduce them in my own way, in the way in which I know them and why they matter and to this conversation, and they're so critical. So I'm going to start with Kadi. Kadi was Myriad, an incredible just woman who really wants to see Africa change today, not tomorrow, today. Her impatience and her sense of wanting to see things happen quickly, it's just incredible. She has the commitment not only to see Africans thrive, but really, really get the infrastructure they need to thrive, which is the key. When we talk about philanthropy, do we even know how to do that? Because philanthropy is also based on trust. I don't just give you because I like you. I give you because I trust you will do what you said you will do. And that's what you're going to hear over and over from our panelists. And so, Kadi, thank you for everything you do. And thank you for making so many things happen at ADN. I appreciate you. And then we have Dana. Dana, you're incredible. I met Dana in Oxford at the School World Forum. And you know, when you go to events and you meet someone, and I think I mentioned this also last week, there are a few people you just meet and you get connected so, so deeply. And we connected simply because we both are diasporans from two different parts of the world. She is a Haitian diaspora trying to see that change happens within that country. We know the plight of Haiti and her optimism, her sense of self and wanting to see change, but also her graciousness to open up that to us. And so, because I have to say, we've been very much thinking of Africa and the diaspora from the prism of me, meaning I am an Eritrean diaspora, so-and-so is the Ghanaian diaspora, blah, blah, pretty much have been contained to that up to, I believe, for me, about 10 years ago. And then you start to say, well, wait a second, but we're not the only Black people in the diaspora. The largest African diaspora actually is not in the United States or anywhere else. It is in Brazil. 90 million Black diasporans are in Brazil. We just forget that sometimes. The other biggest diaspora is also in Africa, intra-Africa diaspora. And this is the things that we need to be humble about. And I am becoming more humble in that sense that my knowledge about the diaspora is growing every single day. And the fact that we can work with Dana and others from the Afro-Caribbean countries does tell you that how big the reach of the Black community is. So Dana, you will talk about many different things, and especially about the effort that you're running through the Kellogg Foundation to support Haitian diasporans. And then how do we make the African diaspora tent bigger and bigger? We've been working with Barbados for a very long time, so we got used to that. And now we have Haiti, and we'll have more other countries to come in the future. But I want to thank you for that. And our audience would like to know also what you're doing and how can we be a part of it and how can we support each other. So I'm so happy that you're here, and thank you for all that you're doing. And also thank you for opening my eyes. I'm just going to say that. Thelma, what can I say about Thelma? Okay, I just came from Nigeria in July, and this woman, the way in which she received me, the community that she put together to thank our relationship, our partnership, and to speak about her vision, how Nigerian diasporans can actually make a huge impact in that country, and her vision too for Africa as a whole, and especially for women's economic empowerment. Is just unmatched in my opinion. And I've been growing in my sense of understanding too about women's issue. And even though I've written here and there about women's economic empowerment, I don't really, I haven't lived that life. She does every single day, whether it's in England, whether it's in Africa, whether it's specifically in Nigeria. And the kind of work that she is trying to do through the Nigerian philanthropy organization that she's now running. It's a private-public partnership platform that I would love to hear you speak about and see how not only the Nigerians, but the friends of Nigeria and the global community can be a part of it. So I am so honored and delighted to have each and every one of you with us. And thank you to our audience. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of this journey. For ADN, this conversation is a part of our initiative that we started in 2022, going beyond remittances, and I'll talk about that as we speak. That we started this and we launched this at the Africa Leaders Summit in 2022 in Washington, D.C. Now that is an integral part of our strategy and who we are. So it's no longer an initiative. It's now a part of every operation of ADN. And I'll have Kadi and all of us who are working on this together mention what that means. And I will try to do the same thing I can. And so I'll start here and I have each one of the panelists introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with Dana. Dana, do you want to go? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Almas. It's difficult to add to what you've shared. I think it was such a lovely, lovely introduction, and it's true. When we met, I think to your point, timing is everything. As the Haiti lead for economic development work, which we call Family Economic Security at the Kellogg Foundation, this is both a work of passion, personal passion, commitment, but professional engagement as well towards Haiti on behalf of the foundation, who's deeply engaged in Haiti for about 25 years now. So the work that we partner with local actors there, and that I have a deep, deep joy to be part of, that has brought me to you, brought me to Kadi, brought me to the Founders of African Network that we're all part of, our growing community that is cross boundaries and cross region. That work has really been historically as part of what I lead for the foundation, particularly focus on how do we partner with local communities around economic development beyond remittances, right? Understanding the importance of remittances, but how do we leverage what we have as asset and drive it further, whether that means fully deploying the full scope of tools and resources that foundation own, whether it's grant making, impact investment, convening, facilitating, trying to break silos, supporting advocacy work, policy, whether it's within country. And I think that's one of the things we'll talk about later, the importance and power of diaspora groups, whether in the countries where they reside, in addition to the countries where they're giving to. So these are I think this kind of expanded view of philanthropy is incredibly necessary to partner with communities and with leaders and businesses in ways that are appropriate to the demands and priorities of the time. But I think that we see those patterns everywhere. We see them in Haiti in terms of that need to show up in a much more integrated way. We see it across the Caribbean, and naturally in all my conversations with you across our broader diaspora and across the continent. So I think the timing is incredibly perfect. I'm thrilled to be here and look forward to connecting with the audience beyond this, and look forward to our work together and to the rich conversation, which I know and true ADN fashion is just one of many conversations this year along this thematic. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you. Kadi, it's yours.
Thank you. To Dana's point, I'm going to second her. I can't add to anything you've said, Almas. You are right that I get impatient. But I want to before I explain anything, I want to thank each one of you for being here with us today, and for contributing to what this diaspora already is, but how do we build on the work that ADN has already done. And that's really that's the source of my impatience. I personally, as an African American living in the U.S., but also as a person of African descent directly from the continent, I really feel like we have yet to tap into the full breadth of our people across continents. So Almas, thank you for mentioning the gap that we have yet to cover, including Brazil, Haiti, and the rest of Afro descendants across Latin America and Europe. We are so thankful for all of you, for tapping into this community, and we want us to all come together and not only as individuals, but in our unique capacities to elevate the voices of Afro descendants across the continent. That's why I get impatient, because I feel like we have yet to reach out to all of our people across continents. But for context, my name is Kari Silla. I serve as Director for Africa at the Myriad Alliance for Borderless Giving as a broad network, but I'm with the institution called Myriad USA. And we do two main things. On one hand, speaking of infrastructure, as Almaz has mentioned, we facilitate philanthropic resources across the globe, philanthropic capital for US donors that are interested in supporting international social impact issues, but they don't have the mechanism to get involved directly. So we provide fund mechanism to be able to do grant making on their behalf. So that's one part of my job in the Africa context. The other part is the incredible privilege that I have working with African social entrepreneurs that are tackling issues of development on the continent from so many different angles, I should say, whether that's environmental, whether that's education, leadership capacity building, health, and so on and so forth. And so we serve as fiscal sponsor for these social enterprises across the continent, mostly nonprofits, but also for-profit and impact investing institutions across Africa that, in my view, are the key to unlocking Africa's potential. So it is a huge privilege for me as a person of African descent to be in a position that reflects my passion and commitment to the continent and also to our people around the world. So I thank you tremendously for being here with us today. And I think I'll hand it over to Thelma, our sister from the other side, to guide us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kadi and Almaz. Always a pleasure, and it's good to meet Dana and virtually. This platform, this Black Philanthropy Month annual meeting, is really strategic. Almaz has already thanked Jackie, who is the brain trust for this for over 20 years, and the ability to get together once a year and just kind of like take the temperature of where we are as a global community, who is doing what, how we can support each other. I think it's priceless. And I'm so happy that my good friend and colleague, Almaz, is now the chair of Black Philanthropy Month, because I know she'll take it to different heights. And I'm really excited about that. So what I do, so I've worked in philanthropy and impact investing for over 25 years, both supply and demand side. I've headed two of the largest foundations in Africa, and then ventured out into my own co-founder of an impact fund. And I thought I was taking a break to go and complete my doctorate in the UK, and then I was asked to chair the newly established Nigeria Office for Philanthropy and Impact Investing, which is in the Office of the Vice President of Nigeria. It's a private sector-led office to bridge the gap between philanthropy and impact investing and what the government does, and form partnerships. It's the first of its kind in Nigeria. A similar office was established by President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in Liberia, working with US foundations, and it did really, really well. And so in Nigeria, the difference between the Liberian office and the Nigeria office, because people ask me that all the time, is that the Liberia office was fully government. This office is not government. It's private sector led. I don't work for the government, but I chair the office that is made up of private sector and the government and some foundations in Nigeria to really look at how we can bridge the gap between what the government does and what philanthropy does and impact investing. My entire career in impact investing, every single conference I've been to in Africa, we have talked about the importance of involving the government, involving policymakers. And I wonder if we really meant it, because now that we're doing it, I think we realize why it's so difficult to do, right? First of all, I was in a meeting with legislators, and they were like, please explain to me the difference between philanthropy and impact investing, as basic as that. And I think many of us tend to talk to ourselves a lot, We're in an echo chamber many times. We speak to people who agree with us. And I think that's not how you grow an industry. You have to have the difficult conversations with policymakers. You will not believe that a country like Nigeria has no legislation on philanthropy and impact investing. And when I first said it in a meeting, the legislator said, "Oh, I'm sure we do. You don't know your facts." I'm like, well, I'm really very sure that we don't have legislation on philanthropy and impact investing. And then I was called by the Speaker of the House himself. And he said, "We did our research. You're absolutely right. There's no legislation. How is this possible?" And that's when I started looking at myself and all of us who've been doing this work and wondered, have we really just dwelt in an echo chamber where we were not involving the people that can make the laws that will transform Africa? And so even though my mandate wasn't conversations around legislation, the office was established for one reason, and I think it was very smart for the vice president to do this because it was never done before. It's because it's the first office. They didn't want to just do every single sector, and so let's see this thing on. The sectors: renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, fashion industry. Nigeria is huge. I'm sorry to the other African countries, but Nigerian fashion is the best on the continent. And so it's not structured, and nothing is catalyzing the entrepreneurs to even grow that sector. And the last is furniture manufacturing. And when I looked at the brief that I had, I'll just end with this because I'm sure that the conversation, I'd like it to be a conversation, and ask me any question. I realized two things. One, I was dealing with a perception problem, which is the perception of Africa in general, and then even heighten the perception of Nigeria. And how was it that I was going to go out and make the case for people to partner with Nigeria without confronting that perception problem? And I decided that the best way to do it was the first capital that the office would raise, and the first capital partnerships that the office would develop would be local capital. Because if I raised local capital and if I generated local partnerships, it would give me the credibility to go out and say to people, well, we are putting our money where our mouth is. Now you can join us. And so there were two things we did. We've signed partnerships with a lot of foundations in Nigeria. Very critically, we decided that we would tap into the $26 billion annual remittances comes in from Nigerians in the diaspora. And so we, through funding a really generous grant from a Nigerian financial institution, we set up a platform called Philanthropy. And the idea of it is Nigerians across the world can contribute to job creation for as little as $2. And my dear sister Almaz gave me the honor of launching that in Silicon Valley at the ADN event. So these are the things that we're doing. All of this the office was just inaugurated in January. That's why I'm not sleeping. But the traction that we've had has really encouraged me, and even more so, that there's so many people out wanting to really see Nigeria succeed. And that has been my own education. People like Almaz, Almaz didn't have to make us one of her stops when she visited Nigeria. She was able to host her with government officials, to hear Almaz speak about the importance of the diaspora, as well as other private sector leaders and foundations. And all of them left that meeting saying the same thing. Why don't we ever get invited to these things? And I said to Almaz, you see the problem. So let me stop there, and I'm looking forward to a really interactive conversation. Thank you.
Thelma. So I'm going to say a couple of things before I go to Kadi to really speak about what does it mean to even use a digital medium to give. And so I'm going to have Kadi elaborate on that. But there were a couple of things you've said that it's very, very important that we need to continue to have this conversation. One is on the lack of understanding of even the different kind of giving, including impact investing. So we have some work to do. I think it's always is the assumption everybody knows everything. No, we don't. I don't, nor do you. But collectively, we know something. So there's a learning to be there. I think the other thing you said was the policy, the fact that you can even have the audacity to go and really explain that, and then find out later on, oh, there is no such policy. That's what the role of the diaspora is. We're not just going to go and give our remittances and do all of this stuff. We need to hold our governments accountable and change policies, make sure that there is transparency. I am sorry to say this, as a diaspora, I probably will get trouble in this for this one, but I don't mind. We cannot ask other people to do what we can do. And one of the greatest challenge I see with the continent is not the people of the continent themselves, it's the leadership. We need to really create an ecosystem that is so enabling that entrepreneurs, students, and communities and families can thrive. We can send remittances as much as we want, but if our families cannot even use the money to create a thriving community for their children, I think we're not doing the right thing. I ask all of us, though I am not the best person for this for many, many different reasons, but for those of you I work with, and I'm going to shout out to Nigeria and Nigerians, I'll say something because I think it's very important. It's part of the change in the narrative. When I went to Nigeria, what I have noticed, and even the people I met with, it was just that Nigerians, even when they are not happy with their government, they love their country and they just keep coming, do the best they can to invest, even if it's not to their satisfaction, but they continue to dig in. And that sense of persistence, that sense of commitment is not always easy for all of us. I know that personally, but it is something that we need to do, not because we come from that country. Sometimes we are so kind of dipped into that identity, but it is also simply because it's a country that you feel like you can invest in and thrive with, even if it is not your own country. I just say that is very, very important. It's also part of the narrative change that we all have to go through. But because I have to say this, my experience in Nigeria was so good that my Nigerian team members were like, what? You're going to do this? You're going to do it? But Annie is there. So, and I'm saying yes. And there is a reason for that. And we will continue to have a conversation on this. But I am just so proud of all Africans and what they're doing. But I'm so glad, Thelma, you brought the conversation on policy change. The next conversation on this is, we all talk about giving. Giving is very personal, whether it's investment or philanthropy. We give because we believe in the cause, we believe in the leadership. We have a much bigger expectation than it is for ourselves. And so, Hadi, you have gone through this for a long time. We've talked about many different things that ADN, Myriad can do, which we will at some point. But what does it mean to give online? That's what digital means. So what does it mean to give on my mobile phone? Why do I pick up my mobile phone and just give money? What are we talking about, and what does that look like? And how do we make sure that people understand? It's the same thing. We think people know, but they might not know. So how do we work together to make sure that everybody knows? Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. So maybe taking a step back to kind of contextualize what I do at Myriad USA and how we sort of lean into this online giving or digital philanthropy. As I mentioned before, being director for Africa, I oversee two portfolios. So one side is the donor side, which is also digital philanthropy, right? I mean, traditionally, many donors in the past had given by check because there's trust there. Like I trust the postal office. We're based in New York City. I know that my money is going to get there. But I think even before COVID, and definitely COVID amplified this process, wire giving has been quite prominent in recent years. And what's sort of changing on the donor side as well is crypto giving, right? Giving through cryptocurrencies and stocks and securities, all of which are digital giving. It saves money, it's fast, and it also, for many US donors, you can save on capital gains. You don't have to pay capital interest, and you can give the money and it's fully tax deductible. So that's the donor side that I oversee in the Africa context. The organizational implementer side is the part that's very, very interesting when it comes to diaspora giving, We serve as a fiscal sponsor to hundreds of organizations across the globe. We are at this point 1,500 funds. Almost half of those come from the African continent, which I have the privilege to oversee. And I can assure you that the majority of organizations that I work with in the Africa context do almost all of their fundraising online. And they use so many different tools. We at Mirrored USA automatically provide them platforms called every.org is called, and you can create so many different campaigns to help boost their fundraising capacity, not only among the individuals that they know, but also leveraging their followers online to promote their campaign. So they do that through every.org, but many people actually, including those in the audience, might know things like GoFundMe. GoFundMe is a digital platform that many people fundraise by. Facebook is a digital platform that many people fundraise by. I've even seen people using Instagram and TikTok, because there is a pocket of population, next generation givers, that people have yet to tap into. And many of the successful fundraisers that I work with at Mirrored USA often go to TikTok and Instagram to elevate the issues and then get young people involved. And it's really not a complicated process. And what's interesting about it is the fact that anyone and everyone can be a philanthropist. All you have to do is give $5 if you wanted to. You could give $20. You can give $5. I was mentioning to my co-panelists here that we have two funds at Mirrored USA that are providing social services across Egypt, both Greater Cairo and are now expanded to Alexandria, and they provide healthcare services. Each of them raises about $1.2 million only online through every.org platform and Facebook. And the average funder gives them $25 a year. And they tap into this massive amount of diaspora across the Egyptian diaspora, not only in New York City, but across the world. I mean, I've seen people giving from Australia. I didn't know Egyptians were in Australia, but I've seen people giving from Australia, a huge Egyptian diaspora in Germany, and you can track that. But to your point, Almaz, I think what I see different for those two funds compared to others is the level of trust. These are people that they know. They're from the same community they went to school with. These are families, friends of friends that promote their platform, and they don't know half of the people that are coming to give to them, but somebody in the group knows someone else. And there is this cascading effect that online giving enables that other forms of giving don't enable for implementing organizations. So I think I want to definitely underscore the economies of scale when it comes to online giving and the value of community building and connections that many organizations can get from engaging people online through philanthropy. So I'll just stop there and then maybe hand it over to you, Almaz, for my other co-panelists.
Thank you. No, Kadi, I think relationship, trust play a big role in everything we do. I always say I've never done anything outside of these things. You build relationship, you build trust, and action follows. These are critical. We cannot take things like that for granted. So it's very, very important. Let me go to Dana with a different context. So Dana, Kellogg Foundation announced a $30 million commitment to the Haitian community. Let me just emphasize the importance of this. There are more than 700,000 Haitians in the United States. I believe they're about 16% of the Afro-Caribbean community living in the US. They contribute to the economy in the best way they know how, because systems are not always equitable everywhere we go. We just have to create possibilities. And I believe this is one of them. So I'd love for you to talk about that in the context of what you're doing. And then what does that mean to all of us? How can we collectively help you to even increase that? What does it look like in giving? 30 million is one thing, but then how do we scale that up to ensure that many of the Haitians in the United States and around the world, and especially in Haiti, who are struggling every single day for many different things, of which one is politics and war. What do we do with each other? It's not even war with other people, it's with each other. How do we overcome that? It breaks my heart, but that's the truth. So I want to hear from Dana. Maybe that's also my inspiration. It's when I talk to Dana, The Haitians that I know through ADN, they're extremely well educated, way over the top in terms of their career. And so, you stuck into that. You're only watching that and then everything else that you're looking. And so I wanted to understand, what does that mean in the global context of diaspora, the world, the global diaspora, forget about the country specific diaspora. What does that mean, and how can we learn more and be a part of this movement that you and your team are creating?
Thank you so much, Almas. Before I get into, and the campaign that you are referring to is it's called the Haiti Pockets of Hope campaign. And in fact, it's a $90 million 3-year campaign that we as a foundation have decided to support and launch on behalf and in collaboration with Haiti. And I'll share 2 kind of stories related to that. You said something earlier, and I agree wholeheartedly, right? There are certain things as a Haitian person who lives in the United States, who's part of this diaspora, and when we think about the role of the diaspora, right? I'll use myself as an example. I'm somebody who grew up in Haiti and immigrated in the United States at 19 years old. And I now have the deep privilege of leading work that is transforming in collaboration with local organizations, businesses, and philanthropy ecosystems for hundreds of thousands of people. So the role of the diaspora, to your point, Almas, is incredibly complex, whether it's personally, but also in terms of the kind of initiatives we can be part of, and the ways in which our the institutions we're connected to, lean into those efforts. And as a foundation, we've been engaged in Haiti, in fact, since the 50s. The new version of our engagement, which has been since 2011, this really place focus and systems focus, right? So both at the same time, understanding that communities and children to thrive, which is really the core of who we are, supporting communities and local actors in creating conditions that allow children to thrive. That's what we care about as a foundation. And we believe in communities' capacity to help themselves. So we believe in leaders' capacity to change their own conditions. So we see ourselves as accompanying local leadership, local expertise, but this local, right, in this context, is also regional. It's also diaspora, to really advance and change conditions as they see fit, right? So it's not us as a foundation saying what is important and what is a priority, is in fact thinking around where we can be best positioned and leveraging the full scope. And that's not something else that I do want to advance. And I think something that Talma also touched on, the importance of philanthropy, to really think about, particularly when we think about African countries across the globe, thinking about how do we deploy the full scope of philanthropic resources, right? Not just humanitarian, which many of us are very comfortable with in terms of diaspora giving, but what else can we do more? How can we consider our humanitarian and charity and kind of grant making as the first step of a stepping stool that leads into ecosystem building, that leads into impact opportunities for impact investment and impact first investment, patient capital, and the kind of investment necessary to transform communities long term through the lenses of sovereignty and self-determination. So this campaign was born, in fact, former Prime Minister of Haiti, Michel Pierre-Louis, who also is the leader of FOCAL. And FOCAL is a partnership between Open Society in Haiti. And FOCAL has been leading work as local philanthropy around heritage culture in a host of agriculture also being a key piece. And one of the things that she spoke to, you spoke about narrative earlier. I think we all know that what the narrative is about Haiti, not necessarily the first self-freed, largest Afro-Caribbean population in the region, and the country that has contributed to the notions of human rights and one of the earliest democracies in the region. What we often hear as of recent it's the appellation, and you see I have a hard time saying it because it's something that I absolutely abhor, but we often hear Haiti being the poorest country of the Western Hemisphere, as opposed to the impoverished country of the Western Hemisphere, for a number of geopolitical and historical reasons that we will not get into today. But the importance of naming it is because what we're talking about is addressing root causes and addressing systems. And that requires long-term engagement, long-term partnership. It requires thinking about people, institutions, systems, policy. And it requires also for philanthropy to not only support actors that it invests into and encourage their collaboration, which is something that we support a lot, but for philanthropy itself to be a collaborator with other philanthropy and impact investing in very intentional ways. So that campaign, born from something that Michelle Purley talks often a lot, the notion that Haiti is a country with myriads, and no pun intended, Caddy, myriads of pockets of hopes. And why? It's because community and entrepreneurs and people everywhere are doing tremendously innovative things every day. So how do we, one, share that brilliance and that innovation in the world so that it can be part of the collective gifts of our Afro communities and collective gifts of humanity to address our issues, but also how do we fund it and support it? Very simply, people need resources at the scale levels and to be able to do the work that they need to do. So this campaign is a response to that. We've been investing in a very integrated fashion. We could do more, we could learn, we've made mistakes and we've learned from that. But we've been deeply engaged since 2010. We're engaged for a generation in Haiti. And this campaign, after seeing tremendous efforts and transformation at the systems level, we realized that we need to do more. We need to step forward as philanthropy, and we're inviting others to step forward with us. We want to support the Haitian diaspora, the broader African diaspora, Afro-Caribbean diaspora, to think about how do we lean into one another, right? Pockets of Hope is one in Haiti, but what are some of the other things that we can be part of as we together advance on really changing and funding conditions at the necessary level so we can see transformation in our lifetime. And I do agree with Caddy on the urgency, not tomorrow, not in many decades, but now, because we know how to do it. And I think we have the collective intelligence as a diaspora to do it.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Now I'm also the most impatient person I know. My team know, oh, we got to do this now. I don't really think about tomorrow. I'm so grateful for now, for the time that we're together with all of you, wherever you are. It is this that I appreciate, and that I really, really believe that the more we think about tomorrow, the more I'm going to talk about me. The more I think about tomorrow, I feel like I'm losing today. And I think that we need to think about now, this moment that we're together. And I think what Dana, you talked about is a couple of things, but the one that really comes to light to me is the narrative, the way in which Haiti is projected. And I think the more we let other people narrate our history, the lesser we have ownership of that history. I think it is on us. We need to really tell our story. The way in which we know our story needs to be told. To wait for other people to do it is not going to take, it's going to take years, and we will continue to be angry and disappointed. The other thing you mentioned was about the collective giving. Yes, you've got the 30 million thing. That's just the beginning. You've answered that question of what does that collective giving look like? Mm-hmm. What would it look like for me to give $50 to this big initiative? And where do I go and give that? And in order for me to do that too is, Dana, where you and I and all of us have a responsibility to make it available, and which I hope ADN makes that available to all of you. So when we send our next steps and the recording for this event, I would love to share whatever our speakers are sharing, anything that you see from the audience aligns with our mission and vision, because ADN is not necessarily trying to be everything to everyone, but there are specific things that are really aligned with our strategic plan and direction that we should be amplifying and speaking about. And I think on that narrative thing, we need to hold to that, Dana, and we need to talk about how do we make this workable? How can we become tellers of our own story? It's not easy, because now we are told I go to Nigeria. I'm going to use this as an, sorry, it doesn't mean I'm kicking on you, Thelma, but I go to Nigeria. Before I went, a lot of things I've heard, but I am very stubborn. I was born in May. So I let people tell me what they want to tell me, but I always do what I think is the right thing to do for me. As I go to Nigeria, and I'm not kidding you, from the time I put my foot into that airport to the time that I got out of the airport, the smiling, I think I told this to Thelma, everywhere I go is this generous acceptance of who I am, and then this curiosity about who am I? What are you doing here? This privilege that I had for this incredible, gracious community, to know them, for them to know me, even briefly, it was the highlight of this year for me. I'm not kidding you. This, I mean it literally. It's the truth, and I've written about it. It's on our website. You can go take a look at it, but I meant it. And the reason I say that is the narrative on Nigeria, the narrative on Haiti, the narrative on every country on the continent is whatever other people want us to know. I think we have the right to experience it ourselves and create our own story about what we saw and tell the truth. We cannot just put that also on the side. And I think that changing narrative is critical. And as we continue this conversation, Thelma, one on the changing of the narrative, but also there are some incredible success stories that you have encountered yourself in the work that you've done, whether it was MPO, but also in the past. Talk about how African diaspora-driven success stories that you may have had. And I'll say one thing on the diaspora giving. There's this misconception that remittances, that foreign direct investment is what makes a difference on the continent, or aid. Let me just give Nigeria as an example, because it's the closest, although the continent as a whole gets between $80 billion to $100 billion per year in remittances from the continent. When I say that, it includes the entire Africa. There's no north, there is no south, just the entire continent gets that. But then Nigeria, one of the largest countries on the continent, in 2022 received $22 billion in remittances, and less than $0.9 billion from foreign direct investment, and way less, or maybe a little bit more, from the aid. So Africa gets 3 times more funding from the diaspora than it gets through remittances, than it gets from aid or foreign direct investment. In that context, it's really incredible. We don't really say this, but it's the truth. So in that sense, Thelma, talk a little bit about what you are seeing. Doesn't have to be necessarily a case study, but just any example that you would like to share with our audience. And then I will talk about a couple of them that I have witnessed myself. So talk about that, Thelma. Thank you.
Thanks, Almaz. I mean, the question of narrative is one that, you know, it's nothing. If you watch CNN, you'll never come to Nigeria. It's as simple as that. And if you go by whatever is said on CNN, the truth is, I think we also have to be careful about how we perpetuate the narrative ourselves, particularly when it comes to financing, because the people that give money, whether it's philanthropic giving or impact investing, there's a lot of power around giving. There's a lot of, and it's very uneven power. And many of the people, you know, we're still in a situation where, this is why I really believe in local capital, generating a lot of local capital, because it helps to balance that power dynamic and show that there is also out there that Africans don't invest in themselves. And so when you generate local capital and you show that there is a community that is interested in structured philanthropy or impact investing, it helps to change some of the narrative. I mean, you can argue forever with someone, but when you show results, it's only results that change narrative. And so just to say that, you know, I actually laugh now when I hear so many people talking about, oh, is Nigeria safe? Well, just continue saying that while other people come and invest and take all the money away. Because the investments that are, you know, the tons of foreign entities investing in Nigeria, every plane that we take to Nigeria is filled with people going to do business. So we're missing something. And if we don't get that something right in these conversations, Philanthropy Month particularly, I think we
Thelma, sorry, Thelma. we're losing some of what you're saying. So if you want to be closer to the mic, because I would hate for people to lose what she's about to say.
Oh, I'm not sure where you dropped off. Sorry, I'm in a hotel. Maybe the Wi-Fi is bad here. I just said that, you know, the narrative is something that we have to be very deliberate about and take responsibility for. We can't be part of perpetuating. When listening to what Dana said about Haiti, it's true. That's how people describe Haiti. And then when you see the pictures, you just know that this could be amazing tourist destination as well. And so what is causing the contradictions? And so we live in contradictions anyway as Africans who have also privilege in all parts of the world. We are contradictions ourselves. And so we need to know that we bring those contradictions into whatever we do. And I take that responsibility extremely seriously, both as somebody who has the privilege of talking to people who have money to invest. I know that I may be the reason why they don't invest in an organization in Africa. So I'm very careful with the advice that I give. And we need to, because you may help to either shed positive light or negative light on the country at large. Because if people are investing in their success stories, that narrative will start to change. So into your question around success story, one of the things about the diaspora I want to first say is the Nigerian diaspora, they're not a monolith, right? And everybody has their passion. And everybody, but one common denominator that I'm finding out, the diaspora is insisting on standards. They're insisting on standards. Many of them live in countries where things work, and they have refused to accept less of their own countries. And I love that. And so I love that they are insisting that I would like to give, but I want accountability. I would like to give, but I want transparency. I would like to invest, but I don't want to be emotional about it. I will be emotional about sending money to my mommy, to my daddy, to my auntie, but I won't be emotional about giving money for job creation in Nigeria. For that, I may not ask my mother to be accountable, to bring receipts, but I will ask you if I'm giving you money for job. And I absolutely love it, because they have to hold every single person that is part of the trajectory of investing accountable. We shouldn't do things with a lower standard or lower expectation. And so one of the first things I did building this platform called Philanthropy was to insist that it was audited by an international firm. And then I also insisted that none of the funds that was members of the diaspora give, Nigerians in the diaspora give, should go through the government. I said all of the funds should go through the NGOs and the private sector organizations that we work with, because I knew that in doing that, it will further build trust. And what people come back and tell me is like, oh my God, like, you know, I didn't understand what this was about. I think because we've been educated by the work that we do, we are able to bring these suggestions in to say, you're not going to get anywhere without transparency. You're not going to get anywhere without accountability. People need to know the money we use for what it's being given for. And so that's the one, if you ask me about successes, I think it's a success that the government agreed to that, first of all. And, you know, I'm very careful of the battles I fight, because I know that we're asking people to change the ways they've been doing things for centuries. So it's baby steps. To me, that was a baby, very big step, you know. And so we have that in place where there's that we have, we will go through them to do with the government. That's number one. Number two, Afrobeats. Forget what every single person tells you. Comes from Nigeria, and our stars are biggest in the world. We need to tap into global acceptance, the entertainment and creative industry in Africa. I love Senegalese jazz. I listen to Senegalese jazz all the time. You know, and I say this that, you know, maybe this is ADN, the next meeting, we should just put a whole session on the African creative industry. It is an example of what it is to market an African brand globally. These young people have done what you and I sit in board meetings for hours trying to figure out. They have gotten an acceptance across the world through music and film and fashion that we can learn from in the philanthropic world. And I say that because I'm in Indianapolis for an investment conference. I spoke yesterday, and I met I watched this show Yellowstone, nonstop, I'm addicted to Yellowstone. So this is the US influence in the world, right? I am an addicted to Yellowstone. There's a guy, an African-American guy on that show that I've always wondered about. He acts very well, he holds his own. Well, he's at this same investment conference that I'm in. Turns out he's not only African, he's Nigerian. And guess what he is? He's made all this money, he has all this fame, and guess the question he's asking? I'm looking for how to invest on the continent. And I'm looking for credible vehicles to do this through. And I go back to my comment about echo chambers and how much we talk to just ourselves, because here's this resource. But he said something very crucial. He said, but I'd like to do it through the entertainment industry because I've seen that they have their act together. So these are the things that are so untapped. Just this vast resource that we have, that's just one person. So he and I have agreed to work together, agreed to do some stuff together, but I can call, 50 names of Nigerians in sports, in Nigerian global stars, that if we put them in a room and we talk about like what he was talking about, using online giving, and we make them ambassadors of it, it will change the face around how we look at diaspora and giving and diaspora and philanthropy, because the diasporans trust them. The Nigerians in the diaspora, they trust Davido and Burna Boy more than they trust the Nigerian government. It's the fact. And so how do we get into this resource and bring them to meetings like this? I tell you the truth, I've been educated in this process, and that's what I'd like to do going forward. Create spaces for the unusual suspects, usual actors that I don't get to work with every day. I know. You know what? We're from the same family. We need to bring in other families into this conversation so that we can really tap into the energy and the resource that's out there. Let me stop there.
Oh, Thelma, thank you. So 2 things. We're getting on time is a bit running, but I'm going to say on a couple of things that Thelma mentioned. Yes, we really are all onto the creative economy. In fact, Kadi and I are hosting a session pretty much on that on Anga soon. And I am looking to have you join us. Dana and Thelma will be there, and we will send invitation soon. On the other one, the African Diaspora Investment Symposium, which is going to be in Washington, D.C. It's our 10-year anniversary. There is one half, a very long session, pretty much tailored for that. Toward the end of the symposium on Friday would pretty much be at a venue where it will allow us to sing, to dance, and to eat. It will be all about Caribbean, Afro-American diaspora. We're going to be culturally diverse and really bring that community together. So it's very, very important. As we go, hopefully get a couple of questions to answer. I wanted to ask Kadi first and then Dana to answer, how can the Afro-Futurism, that sense of Afro-Futurism, influence the future of Black giving in our community? I'll start with you, Kadi, and then I'll ask Dana to elaborate, and then we'll get some questions from the audience.
Yeah, I want to thank Thelma for building the container for this conversation to move forward. I think the Afro-Futurism angle is the sports and entertainment industry is spot on the Afro-Futurism angle of investment. Almaz, as you hinted at, we're going to be organizing Mayor of the USA, in collaboration with ADN and the National Basketball Players Association, are collaborating together for the UNDA to bring together some of our biggest players from the continent who are investing already, right? We have Precious Achua of Nigeria. We have Paps Mensah of Ghana. We have Leo Dieng of Southern Sudan. I mean, it's just endless. And I don't understand why we have not tapped into these people before. Almaz and I are hoping to change this narrative in that direction. But beyond the players, how do we tap into the capacity of the Afro-diaspora capacity in the entertainment and sports industry for social development on the continent and around the world? It's not just Africa, but it's also our people from Brazil. It's also our people from Haiti and so on and so forth. How do we tap into that? And that's where I see the Afro-futurism Almaz coming in. How do we collectively come together in all of our unique capacities, whether that's philanthropy, impact investing, sports and entertainment, private sector, to combine our forces in tackling some of the most untractable issues, not only on the continent of Africa, whether that's issues of famine, underdevelopment, if, you know, for lack of better words, conflict, unfortunately, but also like the incredible creative industries that's taking place through entrepreneurship, whether that's Nigeria or that's in Haiti. Despite all the conflicts that we keep hearing about, there are solutions happening from the ground up. How do we leverage the power of Afro-tourism, having our own narrative, controlling it, tapping into our own capacities as people, in the diversity that we offer in the different sectors that we work in? How do we leverage that? And how do we, most importantly, leverage a network like ADN that is convening all of our people across the globe to make sure that impact is happening where it should, to make sure that African, Afro-led organizations, entities really can get the wealth that they need to implement these programs, as opposed to waiting for the rest of the world to save us from ourselves. That's how I see Afro-futurism. That's where I see it. And I hope we really come together to tap into that community, and to look, when we're looking at diaspora, we're not just looking at new diaspora from Africa. We're looking at not only contemporary, but we're also looking at historical diaspora. And in all the sectors there is, whether that's education, sports, entertainment, and so on and so forth. So I really hope we, as a collective, as a community, that we start looking around to see who else is missing in this movement. Who else do we need to bring in? We're trying to do it through the NBPA Foundation with the players that are directly implementing program, but the music industry is something we haven't even tapped into. So how do we leverage the Afro-tourism approach to tap into our incredible, talented people across the globe? I'll start there and hand it over to you, Almaz.
Dana, make sure you put this in the context of Haiti.
No, thank you. So not repeating what Kadia said, because essentially from a strategic approach, all of the above, right? Again, our communities, and including Haiti, have so much vibrant culture. And as I was sharing at an unveiling recently, culture really and culture really is, and art in particular is like the air we breathe. So there's tremendous resources, whether it's in the music industry, whether it's in arts, whether it's in crafts. There's so much there that we have an opportunity to tap. And in fact, there's a group recently, a couple of years ago, who won the UNESCO Prize for healing, racial healing in particular. If anyone has been kind of following the xenophobia issues in the Caribbean, particularly on the Haiti-DR border, they won this prize because it was around uniting the island and really challenging concepts of racism that still plague us today, anti-Black racism in particular, that still plague us today. So agree with all of that, and particularly with the piece, who is missing and what is missing. I think there are three things that I wanted to also add to the conversation in terms of Afro-futurism in the context of Haiti. When we think about impact investing, right? Impact first investing. Well, what we fund is what grows. What we invest in is what grows. So how do we think about and rethink what it is that we value, and align what do we value in our heritage and our culture, and connect the dots with what is exactly that we define as an impact, right? So how do we redefine impact for impact investing in ways that are coherent for us? So as an example, in the context of Haiti, if we think about the importance of food systems, well, food systems food system solutions that are disconnected from farmer sovereignty and farmer economic development is not viable in the context of Haiti, and it's not viable in many parts of the world, right? Similar to Haiti, many in our Afro-Caribbean communities and across the world, really in many ways. Then what does that mean when we then need to talk about impact investing? How do we redefine that impact, right? Our culture, the issue of intellectual property is a significant issue, particularly for our arts, and making sure that we can bridge the gap between the incredible creativity that we see people have and their ability to not only live with what they produce, but thrive, right? So what is the role that tokenization of culture might play with all the proper boundaries around that, so that whomever the artisan could be in the South of Haiti, they, one, can access a broader audience for their art, but two, they get paid for it. They own it and they get paid for it. So how do we think about blockchain technologies and those kind of technologies to make giving and investing and financing and loaning accessible? So all of those, I think the what of Afro-futurism is a lot of what I think Kadi talked about, and I agree 100%. But then the other side of that is the how, and I think the system, the structures, the policies, and really looking at the tools and redefining the tools so that they work for us as African communities in ways that make sense for our culture, our heritage, and our narratives. To Thelma's earlier point, how do we reframe our narratives so that our future is synced to the true narratives of our places in our communities, as opposed to the narratives that have been framed for us for many different reasons. So that's what I would add to this. And in the context of Haiti, the last piece that I would share, governance. We didn't talk much about governance, but the sound, rigorous, transparent governance, which is why it's so important, and again, very excited about the work that Thelma is doing, the role of philanthropy in supporting policies, but also government and governance is incredibly important, because without good courts where people can challenge something as basic as contracts, a lot of what we're talking about is impossible to materialize. So in the context of Haiti, giving, if you're following the news, some of the largest challenges now is how do we get to stable governance as a people? And I think as a broader African diaspora, what are the lessons and learning there that we can share with one another, so that, and I'm reminded also, I'll close with this small story. I grew up with parents who were very keen about making sure that I knew who I was and that I knew what my country was. And I didn't learn it elsewhere, that I learned it at home. And one of the reasons, and I think I shared this with Almas, Almas was asking me, why was I so kind of readily, when we met, for me, the notion of our African diaspora community, it's something so central to, I think, my identity, that she was kind of asking me a question like, why do you readily see it in this way? And I said, well, as a Haitian person, right, if you understand Haiti being a collection of our heritage is a collection of so many parts of Africa, and we see this in our cultures, in our food, and every day. And our history is the very definition of what can happen when Africans come together. Haiti is a materialization of what can happen, and the Haitian Revolution is a materialization of what can happen when the best of us come together. And that is what I learned. But there's a story that my parents also shared with me, that in the 70s, a lot of Haitian intellectuals and professors did the trip to Africa to be part of the higher education systems and a number of countries in Africa. And till today, many of Haitian intellectuals still are anchored and live and embedded in many African countries. So that link is there, and the opportunity to build on it at this time where there are many threats. Climate change is a big one that I think about, particularly if you're small islands, but there are tremendous opportunities, is what I think needs to be part of our thinking as we think about reclaiming our broad African diaspora community as part of how we think about Afro-futurism and our philanthropy and making that a reality.
Oh, thank you. I think this is wonderful in a sense that I also feel I'm growing and learning and seeing me. I've always felt at home wherever I go. I really am one of these very lucky people. I just get in and be part of that society. But there are times when you feel like you meet someone and it really gravitates you into something that you weren't even aware of, that you were thinking about. So thank you for that. I am going to ask, before I close out, I'm going to ask if there is a question. We can take one question and we can actually do it openly. If anyone can raise their hand, I'll give you maybe 2 seconds. And then if I don't hear from you, what we're going to do is ask Jackie, the founder, and the visionary behind this, to say a few words, because I was told that she's here, and so I want to do that. But then I have my friend Patty, who my Zambian friend. Here she is. Patty, you go for it.
Almaz, thank you, and thank you. It's really been inspiring listening in to the panelists. I think I had a question when coming in, and I thought it would have been very interesting to sort of hear, where do we leverage diaspora? And I know we can't leave this particular space without sort of chiming in what that means. And by diaspora, there's a diverse definition to that. So we're talking about Afro descendants and wherever their locations may be, but also looking particularly at about new diaspora and second generation diaspora. How do we really tap in, to that level of diaspora? And I'm reminded, Almaz, of a young man somewhere in the UK, and this is a story that was told to me, about when the collections were being done for Ukraine. And he was really proud to be in a school. So he's of African descent, and really proud to have heard, this collection that was going for Ukrainian migrants. And then when he saw on the news the next day the discrimination that was happening connected to African migrants, he walked back to his teacher and said, "Could you give me back my £2? Because I feel like I could direct it towards another cause." And I give this story in essence to say that our second generation and third generation diaspora are very also intentional about seeing equality, but also seeing that there's a level playing ground in the space of philanthropy. So how do we really target to where they want to see an impact? So basically you were saying, I don't see my brothers and sisters being helped by this wonderful collection that came with Plan International and so on. So how do we really drive the message across that we're intentional about what we want to do around philanthropy in Africa, and that it will get to the point of need, not just in Africa, but across the different spaces in which development financing is needed for? Thank you, and over.
Thank you, Patty. So I'm going to ask Kadi to answer this question, because she does really talk about this. And then you have the platform to make that possible. And then I will just spin it into the work that we're doing, and it's always call to action. So, Patty.
Yeah, Patty, that's a wonderful question. I mean, by default, Mirrored USA infrastructure and capacity to do international grant making across the African continent, and frankly the Caribbean as well, is already well positioned for that. It's doing, we're able to send money to some of the most remote places you can imagine, supporting some of the most intractable issues, whether it be humanitarian, in the context of war, famine, droughts, you name it. And I'm proud to be associated with that. I think it's great. However, my work with ADN and Almaz, under Almaz's leadership, is how do we take this further? What other tools do we need to explore to ensure that not only international philanthropists are involved, that, Friends of Africa think, it's wonderful to have people like that on your corner, but what about us? What can we do together in our individual capacity? And we're thinking about experimenting with the Giving Circle, focused Diaspora Giving Circle, where Almaz will not be very happy because we're still in the works of sort of clarifying. So I don't think she'll be very happy about me sharing this, but it's a tool that we need to experiment with. We're thinking about how do we leverage Diaspora Giving Circle to impact social issues across the globe and involve different generations in the process. But that's just one tool, to be honest with you. Dana has been working a lot in terms of impact investing. Thelma just talked about how
I think we lost Kadi. Dana, Dana, do you want to go?
Okay. What I would add to that point, I think it's also important to talk, and I think, Patty, thank you so much for your question. We didn't talk much about that, but it's so important to also think about what does it look like, what does power building look like for Afro-descendant diaspora where they are? Because the efficacy and the ability for African communities across the world, Afro-descendant communities across the world, to be powerful and impactful in direct philanthropy and influence policy, particularly in the context of Haiti and the Caribbean. A lot of the policies, as an example, U.S. policy, the most recent U.S. Farm Bill, to give a precise example, has a direct impact on aid, and it has a direct impact on local markets in terms of commodities, rice, etc. Because if there's subsidies on the U.S. side and that subsidy gets kind of released in the Caribbean, then smallholder farmers are competing with goods at a much lower price. So what happens in the U.S., as an example, in other places also has a direct impact on the realities of communities. Well, the African Afro-descendant diaspora communities who are where they are, when they're organized, when they're aware, when they're supported, when they're strengthened, when they know how to engage with policy where they are, can be incredibly powerful and as leverage actors where they are, and supporting, even in terms of financing packages from the World Bank or IDB with regards to economic development for other countries. The negotiations of those terms, when you do have Afro-descendant people and those centers of power, to be able to be part of that community and leverage their power in that way, and their engagement with policy makers and policy in that way, is incredibly powerful and important. So I think, and I want to name the African Diaspora Engagement Day that ADN is planning soon along those lines. So I think those kind of efforts we need to continue doing, Patty, to your point, so that that young person who might be in New York City not only understands what it means for me to be in New York City and engage with electorate in New York City and the impact of that on policy that may be impacting where my community is from, and decisions that impact my community across the continent, across the ocean.
Oh, it's so wonderful. I hear there are these possibilities of engaging the second, third generation. I mean, this brilliance of that community is incredible. I'm going to go back again and say that in the United States, if you look at who is in position of power, you will be able to see from the Biden administration all the way to Silicon Valley. We've got Nigerians, Ghanaians, Kenyans, Haitians. There are so many of us. The question is, how do we really tap into them and start to do this thing that Dana, you mentioned about engaging the diaspora because of their skills. Some of them are lawyers. How do we get them to be a part of that conversation when a Haitian government is trying to read this contract that is coming to them from China? What does that mean to, I'm just using that as an example, because there are so many monies and opportunities being left at the table simply because the legal terms were not necessarily to the best interest of the country. We see this in Africa many times. I think it's another way of engaging them. But there's another way of, I see this, that we all have a role and a job to do. As parents, as friends, as community leaders, I must tell, I do this to my son, I drive him nuts, to know that whatever is given to him must also be given back to the community, whether it's here in the United States or wherever that might be. So there's that opportunity for us to educate our children, our friends, and everything. And it takes every one of us to do that. And then from the ADN side, one of the things that we're trying to do is engage the youth through the through the Yali LL program, the new Yali Africa program that we're a part of, but also really to try to send other, to create other opportunities. I talked to my team, we must create a youth advisory committee for ADN. We must do that. It's actually, we have a lot going on, but there's a lot I want to do, but this one is a must that we need to do in order to engage the diaspora. I'm going to ask Thelma if you have additional thing to this. And then I know we're keeping everyone, but what can I just say to all of you something? what I love about this conversation is the people that come. We only lost a couple of people who had to go, but we're all here. So I want to appreciate you. Stay for a little while, and then we will close it at a high note. So Thelma, any additional note to this?
No, I think one thing that is really important as we do this, I think, as you know, from the day I met you, I've been invested in the success of ADN. And that's the same thing in everything I've done. You've shown that as well. And the same thing with Jackie Copeland. And already today, now I'm thinking of how I'm going to start dusting off my Haitian ties and seeing how, because it's just having this one. But it is very lonely and isolating work. And we also have to admit that. You're often moving a boulder by a very, very high hill. I think the importance of us supporting each other, because unfortunately, we've been speaking a lot of truth here. Unfortunately, if one person fails, it taints everyone, right? And that is just the way it is. Other people, and I loved what Michelle Obama said in the DNC, not political at all, but just to say when she said, we don't have the luxury of failing forward. We certainly do not, because if it then becomes an example for people not to do the right thing, because one person failed, or one person had an issue and all of that. And that's the reality of work that we're doing. So I think we need to really commit to making sure that whatever we're talking about, we can't do everything, but whatever we do, we need to do it extremely well. And we need to be invested in making sure that it succeeds, because the domino effect, if it doesn't, has very adverse effects. So I'll just end with that.
Thank you, Thelma. Jackie, I'll give you a couple of minutes just to show your face and then tell us what your next gig is, because you've been busy doing so many different things.
Well, first of all, thank you. I really feel like a proud mama. And it is just wonderful to just hear the insights, the wisdom, and the energy from this panel. I'm just so thankful to so many of you. I want to thank Thelma for being I've been working with Thelma maybe for a decade. I don't know where it begins or where it ends, because it has taken so many wonderful paths. But I want to thank Thelma for being the inaugural Black Philanthropy Month chair, and really ensuring that this dream I've had since I was a teenager, really, to unite Black people across the world for our collective economic empowerment. We are a huge global funding economy, and we all suffer from funding inequities. And if we united and funded each other,
Right.
And I have been experimenting with how to tap our creative industry. Everyone else seems to get rich off of it except for us. And so we have resources of time, talent, and treasure, and voice, and culture that we can tap into to create a powerful future of funding and economic justice for our people. And that's one of the reasons I made the theme this year, Afro-Futures of Giving. But I do want to say that our philanthropy, our funding, our capital access, philanthropy in particular is about love of humanity. And so it's not just about money. I'm always asking that we ask the question, do we really love ourselves as a people? And that's a powerful question to contemplate if you have been raised in an Afro-descendant community. The answer to that is complex. And I'm hoping that Black Philanthropy Month, as I consider my next steps, can be a force for ensuring that love of humanity includes love of Black people, and actually our right to love ourselves, just like everyone else. I also want to specifically thank Almaz and the African Diaspora Network team for taking on the role of leading our work in Africa. It is so critically important. One of the challenges I've had over the 23 years that I created or founded, I always say I'm the founder, but creating something that's lasted for more than a generation is a co-creation. And there are so many leaders who have helped along the way. That includes Almaz, that includes Thelma, that includes each panelist in many ways. I want to ensure that we are always, that Black philanthropy functionally means honoring our past, knowing our past, because still many of our people and our allies don't know that we have had philanthropic traditions and philosophy and institutions since ancient times that have morphed in the diaspora. So yes, remembering that past, but not getting stuck in it and building on it for innovation in such a way that not only keeps up with the times, but shapes the times. And so there's always been this Afro-Futures perspective that yes, we will be in the future, that our giving has shaped history, but it also shapes the future. So I didn't have prepared remarks. I'm just sharing what's on my heart. In terms of me, I will always be founder and I will be supportive, but the WISE Fund is attempting to pilot some funding mechanisms that allow us to also include not just the US, but other places in the world that are still recovering from the long-term impacts of centuries of slavery and colonialism. So we've done that in one way by creating a Black Brazil Fund. Brazil has the largest Black population outside of Africa and the largest one in the Americas. Their institutions, most of the nonprofit institutions are Black-led and actually Black women-led, but they only receive 0.03% of foundation funding. A Black youth is killed by police every 23 minutes in Brazil. They're having a real racial equity crisis, but most people in the US know nothing about it. So we created this fund. I encourage you to check it out on the wisefund.org website, where we're supporting, there are Black community philanthropies in Brazil that are really a lifeline for those grassroots organizations keeping people alive. So we will also be doing our first learning and philanthropic tour to Salvador, Bahia, Brazil, and Rio de Janeiro next year. And we have created a pilot called Soul Fusion that's looking into how we can tap into the creative resources in many ways of the music industry in particular, to create more resources to fund Afro-descendant companies and nonprofits across the world. These are pilots. We develop pilots and then we hope to spin them off to partners like ADN or the Nigeria Philanthropy Office. And so look for announcements and get involved. And tomorrow, August 30th, officially close Black Philanthropy Month with us at our Reunity Black Women Give Back Awards. This is the 4th annual program where we honor 10 outstanding Black women funders across the world. Thelma as part of was an inaugural awardee. And we will also close Black Philanthropy Month and celebrate the International Day for People of African Descent. I just put the announcement in the chat. So do join us. We are a United Nations of giving and funding equity. Thanks for all you do and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. We appreciate you, Jackie, for the wise words that you've shared with all of us. I know that Kadi is back. I want to thank you, Kadi, Dana, Thelma. What an incredible conversation we had. I am sorry that we did not have enough time to go into the audience, but we had a very smart question from Paddy that we would definitely be including in terms of how we could support and bring in the younger generation. Let me thank my team before I share a couple of next steps. Annie, thank you. And then my wonderful partner and wonderful team member, Omolayo, I'm wishing her the best with her new baby. She just had a baby about a week ago, a beautiful, beautiful young girl. So we have a new addition to ADN. But my team, Annie, Fatima, Faduma, and Yinka, thank you so much for taking your time, additional time to make this possible. We're a small team, as I said, but we do everything that we promise to do in the best way we know how. Thank you to our audience. Thank you for staying with us. I mean, it's very rarely that we see the majority of who join stay together with us. So that means this conversation was incredibly important. And I have to say, I'm just enlightened and inspired by what you said, Dana, Thelma, Kadi, and your work means a lot to us. And I look forward to working with all of you to ensure that we do what we said we would do. And then in terms of next steps, I think a couple of things that come to my mind, and I'm going to say this so that when you leave, you know we're going to send you this information. We're going to send you a bit about what's happening in the Haitian diaspora and Haitian community engagement part, and we're going to depend on that, on Dana. On Thelma, we're going to send you information about the Nigerian philanthropy movement and the platform that is taking place. Kadi will share a lot more about the kind of support that they're providing through their platform in terms of funding. But I think from ADN, what I love to share with you is information about beyond remittances. What does it mean to go beyond remittances? It means this. It is not just about me sending money to my sister in Eritrea or my brother somewhere. It is actually about, and I'm not saying let's stop that. I'm actually saying that can we from the diaspora, those who are capable of also tap into our savings, which I know we have a lot of savings, so we don't even know what to do with it. I'm not talking about all of us, but most of us. Can we tap into that and also look at investment opportunity, private-public partnership opportunity? And we need to do that, and we need to send you some information. We will send you information about the African Diaspora Investment Symposium. And for those of you who are in New York City, we have a very small convening. It's not going to include everyone because it's just a 60 person's conversation. But I do know some of you in that sector. As we see it from your background, you will get invitation from us. And I really believe that you are going to be a part of this network. And then the other part of this next step for my team and us is I really think that we need to begin to talk about how do we include the younger generation, and especially the second, third generation. What does it look like? We need to do a little bit of work. And finally, I'm going to say to all of us who worry about Africa and Africans from the diaspora and all that, this notion that Africans from the diaspora are actually outside of the continent and now we're taking over the world and we're really not doing a good job. Well, first of all, we do provide economic development to every country we go to. It's the highest educated population in proportion to any other communities. So I'm very proud of that. Secondly, Africa doesn't send her children out. In fact, I'm happy to say, and sometimes sad too, depends on where they are. Intra-diaspora migration is much, much higher. It's almost 75% of migration pretty much happens within the continent. That's also part of the narrative. We need to tell our story. This notion that Africans are coming everywhere from every place is not true. It's just the way in which the media projects that notion of by showing us images of here and there, and the way in the way in which our community is badly served. And lastly, it's part of my commitment to be honest as much as I can at this point in my life. I honestly want to do that. And I think honesty requires really to look at each other and then look at the ecosystem that we're talking about. We need African governments to get their acts together. Thelma mentioned that before. The same thing in Haiti. We need these changes to happen within the governments. Yeah, I am not going to make change in the country where I come from simply because I happen to be living here. But the communities that live in these places need to request more from their governments. And I do hope they hear them, because our people are suffering in so many places. As much as I love to say that, oh, we're doing great and all of that stuff, I am very aware of the fact that more than 80% of the population in any given country on the continent is actually having to live in a very small amount of money every single day, and that's not acceptable. So let's be humble. Let's really do what we can do, which is to dream big. And I was told this today by Sister Jane in another event that we had for Builders of Africa's Future, to dream big and act big. We have that right to do that. I'm so grateful to all of you. I thank you, and I look forward to connecting with all of you, and I appreciate you. So thank you, everyone.